Greetings! Welcome to the gutter. Everyone ends up here eventually. It is only a matter of time. I am Aldous, and I will be your host this evening. My co-host, the erudite and wry, published author, praised for such works as Eudaimonia and Warlam, renowned across the land for his insightful storytelling on his YouTube videos, which actually, in fact, if you did not catch his most recent one, make sure you do that as soon as this show is over and or we offend you enough that you want to run away. And also on top of all that, perhaps the most recognized and highly regarded ice cream reviewer on Twitter, none other than JP. JP, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. It's another fine Friday, and I'm down here in the gutter with you and all these fine folks in the chat.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of that wonderful, wonderful chat, let's go ahead and greet them. We've got Corey Barton showing up both early. That's odd for Corey, but we welcome him indeed. Got Odin Dasco. Odin Dasco's in the house. We got Belmont Press. Great to see you boys. And of course, Snuggy Jr. Always great to see Snuggy. And then we got Snuggy saying hi to everybody. Always good to see the chat chiming in. So thank you so much for that. Now, I feel like I do kind of the same spiel here at the intro of every episode, but each episode of The Gutter is intended to explore the forgotten aspects of things that inspire us. And this started off exclusively as a dive into the history of comics and the artists that created them, and then it has slowly evolved, as I guess these things often do, into what inspires both the guests and now my co-host and I from a broad range of topics. And although that focus will always try to be on comics, taking the path most often traveled by others, I suppose we will be exploring topics across all media and pop culture, and that will only continue, much to my own personal chagrin. From Kursova delving into the deep history behind the concept of the strongman that led into the Machiste films, Doc Savage, and eventually Superman himself, to even last week, reviewing the stalwart and awe-inspiring work of Guy Davis on the marquee with noted talented author Arvid Nelson, who's an excellent friend of the show. Each instance has been, in many ways, a deep dive into secondary topics all their own. To put that, I guess, to sum that up, it went off the rails a lot sooner than I expected. You know, as is often said, plan is nothing, planning is everything. And to that end, or perhaps because of it, I have long ago stopped trying to plan out the full show structure and instead moved forward with trying to assemble the most complete notes I possibly can on a subject so that I can allow the conversation to flow and at least seem like we know what the hell we're doing. In that regard, I feel that the show's evolution so far has been positive, but I would love to hear from you, the viewer. So post a comment and let JP and I know what you think, the positives, the negatives, any topics you'd like us to cover. Please, by all means, comment. And please remember, in the immortal words and eternal quotable, Buckaroo Banzai, wherever you go, there you are. And so here tonight, of course, is our episode, and that's where you find yourself. And it is my experience that more often than not, those things that we find ourselves interested in and truly drawn to are often suggested or brought to our attention by others who share similar interests. And as this is what the heart of the show was kind of intended for, or more appropriately, my co-host JP kind of thought that we could try something different. Each of us will be presenting the other with something that we are fairly certain the other person is not familiar with, and getting their reaction live just as much as you guys. We have got no show prep for this episode whatsoever, other than what we've each individually brought to show the other, kind of a show and tell, if you will. And thus we will be taking that blind turn around the corner at high speed and praying to God that the other person didn't drag some pile of shit up that's going to be completely worthless of talking about, which I don't think will be the case. So with that being said, do you want to go first, JP, or do you want me to?
I'm happy to. Show and tell is a good analogy. I was thinking more along the lines of, you know how when you want to show a friend a song and you're like, oh my god, they're gonna love it, and then they just like look at you blankly like that. Okay, and they just do not experience it the same way you do. But it's a social chaos, you know, like you're like, oh man, they're just gonna feel instantly what I felt when I hear the song, and then you show and it's like, yeah, okay, all right, moving on. So the potential here cannot be overstated. We can both just come up with complete turds, or we can blow each other's minds. So I'll go ahead and get started if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We do
Okay.
have a couple of people to greet in chat. We've got
Yo.
the preeminent, the greatest host ever of any Star Wars show on YouTube, Steve, that Star Wars boy. Great to see you, sir. We are also greeted by the one, the only Matthew Fowler, as well as Jose Garcia. So we've got some pretty up. We got Odin Dasco, we got Corey Barton,
Heavy hitters.
Matthew Fowler, Jose Garcia. Man, this is impressive. We got Snuggy Jr. in the audience. It's I'm blown away right now. This is crazy that we've got these kind of people here. But what do you got for me, man? Hit
Okay,
me.
so first a question. I, like you, have a piece of entertainment. But the question that I want to ask is, entertainment comes in many forms, right? It comes in many mediums. You have, books, you have movies, TV shows, you have video games, you have cartoons, you have anime, comic books. If you were to single out one as being the least likely to impress you, what medium would you choose?
Local access television.
Oh no, I mean in the grander pantheon. Like, what are you just really not into at all?
Um, Anything Eastern, man, whether it's manga or any of that anime shit.
Okay, and then do you have a follow up to that? Like, what would be second? Like between like,
It,
oh, we got the
you know
nightly
what?
motorcycle.
If you had motorcycle go by in the first 15 minutes of the show on your bingo card, congratulations, because that's like the third time. But um, if I had to pick another one, man, I would say probably television.
Television, really? Okay, you know what? I was not expecting either of those answers, but I'm going to keep rolling with it anyway. So, what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is a video game.
Oh,
Now, that might be a bit of a challenge because I don't think you're a big video game person. Am I correct in that?
yeah, man. In the last 10 years, I have only probably spent I play like Minecraft Dungeons with my kids, but if you take that out of the equation, other than like BattleTech and a little bit of like NHL 2016 on the PlayStation 3, no, I really don't game.
Okay. I'll go ahead and post a link into the chat here, and while it's getting pulled up, so this is a video game trailer. I'm not a big gamer per se, but I would say that I've been playing since I was a kid, basically. I think there are maybe two video games that have, stirred the well of emotion in me and moved me to almost crying. So what I'm here to bring to you tonight, it isn't so much the game, but we'll get into it later. But to kind of like open up the discussion, I was hoping to maybe check out this game trailer.
Yeah. Let's check it out here. Oh, you know what? I did not share with audio. I got to do that. Oh man, such a simple thing, and I fucked it all up. All right, here we go. So this is what you're bringing here. So let's check it out. Can you hear the audio?
Yeah.
To my dearest friends, through the evil noise of artillery, tanks, and planes, I remember our adventures, your friendship, and your pain. my closest friend, Emil, in your twilight years. You came to fight, not for glory, but to mend your daughter's tears. Lucky Freddy, you were always fearless and with intent. I hope you have found peace with your letters that were never sent. Anna, my bravest of warriors across the Western Front, saving the mountain of wounded without firing a shot. And Carl, if only I could light your way home through the fields of war, through treacherous nights, to be with your family once more. Although I cannot write these words, and the time has come to part, your stories will always remain, as will your valiant hearts.
Okay, so that is the primer, right? That's the trailer for the game. Now, I got to deliver on a lot of context here. So, it's called Valiant Hearts: The Great War. It takes place in World War I, obviously. It is not, at no point in the game do you ever pick up a gun. It's one of those kind of old style point and click adventure games where you're mainly doing like really basic, puzzle solving. The focus of the game is more to basically guide the player towards learning about World War One. And so it's really, it's like 80% history and 20% game. It's not a good game by any stretch. It's pretty much a basic vehicle for portraying history and then the stories of the characters, right?
Okay.
Now, one of the characters you saw in there, his name is Emil. He's a father to another one of the characters, and then her husband is another one of the characters. Towards the end of the game, or actually at the very end of the game, right? You're playing as Emil, and I don't remember the name of the specific offensive that you're taking part in, but it's the first time that the game actually drops you into a battle scene. And you don't even have a gun, you have a shovel. And your character is just you're basically digging and helping the men move forward. Your commanding officer is just yelling at people like, go, 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 go. And the game doesn't stop. Like, it's not going to let you progress any further until you finally get, broken yourself as a player, and you do the only thing that kind of makes sense, which is to just walk up to your superior officer and crack him in the head with a shovel, right?
So a little pass to glory action.
Yeah, I mean, and the game won't progress until you do that. The game kind of so if you think about like interactive storytelling, that right there is like the first big moment where you're not going to go anywhere until you finally do that.
You got to frag the NCO to advance.
Yeah. Now, the scene ends, right? And when we come back to Emil, he's in jail. And he's writing a letter home. And sorry, I got to pull up the other video here.
No, you're good.
What happens from there? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, while you're doing that, I did want to highlight something that Maddie Fowler said. Aldous hates Manger, but I think he'd love Lone Wolf and Cub. I do, man. I love Lone Wolf and Cub. There's a couple of Mangers that I do actually really appreciate because I think they're well constructed and well drawn and well assembled. As a general genre, I think it's mostly shit. The same thing with anime. Just the way it is. But yeah, continue.
So you wake up in jail and you've been court-martialed. And Emil, I mean, I don't think I have to so what happens in World War I when you get court-martialed?
No, you get, after you're found guilty with a, drummed up trial, you're shot.
Right. Okay. So that's going to happen to Emil, right? And here's the part that just absolutely blew me away. The game forces you to walk Emil to his death, right? So like I said before, it brings back the whole idea of like you can't progress forward. The game doesn't let you do that. You know what I mean? Like when you're watching a movie or you're reading a book or whatever it is, you're a passive, participant. But in this game, it literally makes you like just break your own heart by walking Emil to his death. Now, I've ramped things up a little bit further because this isn't just the ending of the game, but there's also YouTube, Twitch streamers reacting to it. So this could be something that you absolutely hate.
Oh,
but this is pretty much what I wanted to.
You have ventured into hatred territory.
Yeah, I know, which means it's got to be like incredible or it fails.
I mean, the only reaction videos that I really appreciate are the 20-somethings reacting to the drum solo from Phil Collins. That's always that's fantastic. Almost all the rest of them, man, I would rather listen to some outraged shill bitch about pronouns in a video game intro. But yeah, let's check this out.
Dearest Marie, as the war ends for me, I have no regrets. I've seen too much horror. I hope fate has been more merciful to you. Our time on Earth is brief, and mine has been filled with so much joy that I can only be thankful for how much I've been blessed. Most especially for the wonder you brought into my life. This letter is my last. I've been found guilty by a military court for the death of an officer. Amigo! It was not my intention to kill him. War makes men mad. Though I failed Carl, I know my sacrifice has not been in vain. I fought for my country and my liberty. My honor is assured. Since it is the will of God to separate us on earth, I hope we'll meet again in heaven. Keep me in your prayers. Your loving Baba. Always.
Even though their bodies have long since returned to dust, their sacrifice still lives on. We must strive to cherish their memory and never forget.
Holy crap!
Well, I think there's some excellent sentiment there as to respect and remember those that fought and died. But do you find yourself having a little bit of a disconnect with the story to think that a French soldier would be shot for killing an NCO?
I mean, it was a lot more common with.
No, I mean the fact that a French officer would not be running away.
What do you mean?
Well, they're the French.
Oh, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah,
I thought that was a genuine historical question, and I was going to answer it by saying,
well, it is a genuine historical question.
I mean, the Brits killed way more of their own people than the French did.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
They basically treated the Irish like.
Yeah, I was going to say most of them were Irish.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
They don't actually consider British; they consider subhuman. But
right. I mean, what kind of gets me about that video is, as somebody who you know, cherishes the history of World War One, its ability to like to use the medium to force people like I don't think any of the people, because it wasn't a popular game, so it's not like you're seeing a bunch of big name Twitch streamers and YouTubers doing it for like the clicks or the views. I take
Right.
their reactions as being a lot more genuine. This is also pre like Twitch blowing up and everything. So
Mhm.
the
This is
game's
actually
ability to kind of pull people in and make them feel, the way historians feel about the tragedy of World War One is like that's just amazing to me.
gotcha. So it's not necessarily just the game. It's everything that's around it. It's the culture that the game has cultivated.
Yeah,
Almost.
no, the game is
amongst-
terrible except for what the examples I gave where it basically it forces the player to become a participant. You know what I mean? So when you're walking Emil to his death, you're you're no different than the people that made him, or made people do that. You know what I mean? It makes you become a participant. So you're no longer a passive, viewer of this heartbreaking moment,
Right.
which
Well,
is kind of like I was gonna say it's a great analogy for the war itself and how the Europe basically fed a generation of young men into a meat grinder.
oh, for sure, man. And that's I'm not going to delve into the modern and contemporary political analogies to that, but I think anybody that's aware of what's going on in the world can certainly relate to it, depending on if you want to cite whatever continent you can certainly associate to that. You have moved Odin Dasko. He is Emil now. He is sorrow and death is all that he knows. So
Well, I got one.
here's hoping that he does not know how to tie knots. So as
Um,
go
oh no, I
ahead,
was
man.
gonna say one last thing. I sent you an image on Twitter. This is my eudaimonia artifact, but I had mentioned before that when I made I originally conceived of eudaimonia in college, and this is actually this is what it originally looked like. And the art style was very. I am not a good artist by any means, but I basically borrowed the art style of the game when I made eudaimonia.
All right, so there we go. So there's that. So, man, it is definitely. I can see the inspiration. So, and you actually drew this.
Yeah.
Well, good job, man. You've got some good depth on the cello there. I enjoyed that. For an amateur, that's excellent, man. I certainly could not do that. So I award you praise, good sir.
All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you put what I've brought to the table?
Dude, I enjoy number one. You automatically get bonus points for World War One because whether you knew it or not, World War One is it's one of my fascinating. World War One and World War Two, I gravitate to those. I know I spend some Monday evenings, ruminating on Napoleon with Michael Oten, but World War One, World War Two, that's my jam, man. That's where my minor is, and I will talk about them as much as I possibly can, especially World War One. World War One is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely fantastic. Ever since Tuckman's The Guns of August, have I always loved that 5-year period of history for everything it has to offer.
I mean,
So
it's truly the hipsters' World War.
it really is. It's underappreciated in every regard, and it just makes you want to, blaze up a camel, or not a camel. I'm sorry, an American Spirit yellow in true
Mm.
as you talk about it. But no, it's the as much change that happened with warfare occurred in World War II, whether it's tactics or military equipment. World War One, just with the air war, was fantastic with the developments. In fact, I was just going over this Xevious. I was talking about like every guy seems to have a plane that they're absolutely in love with. And what was it? And I posted the Arco DH2, which was so the Germans initially on the Fokker Eindecker mounted the machine guns on the wings, and then they figured out, hey, we could put an interrupter gear that works on timing. And so when the propeller is at noon, the guns don't fire in this range, just like a camshaft, because there's no transmission. You're just using engine timing. And so he made the gear, and then the Germans put the machine guns through the propeller, and they stopped shooting off propellers. The British solved the problem by moving the propeller from the front of the plane to the back of the plane. So instead of creating a puller, they made a pusher, and that's a brilliant engineering solution. It's an exact. The reason I love it so much is it's a classic engineering solution of, instead of solving a simple problem, we're going to overcomplicate it, because now we're pushing a plane. So now everything has to change. We've got to change the dynamics of the plane. We've got to change the wings of the plane. We've got to change every rule that we've known up till now, because, well, we got to get the machine gun to fire through the propeller. And so instead of going really simple, we went really complex, which is both a very British solution and a very heavily overly schooled engineering solution. So I posted that, and we were going back and forth, and I was he's like, oh, well, what about how did they ever get that? And I was explaining the interrupter gear. So I love World War I. It's absolutely fantastic. So but yeah, man, thank you for bringing that to the table. I will actually be checking that game out. That looks pretty cool.
I have a quick question, since I think I have about a minute left. But
yeah,
you seem to have an extensive mechanical knowledge as well as an extensive knowledge of comic books as a medium. So I've been presented with a conundrum, right? How do you visually show on a page that a train from the 1930s has just started moving? Like, it's just starting to pull away from the station, right? Because
you do what's called a composite panel, which is where you show. So you have let's say you had 4 panels. Your top panel is going to show your engines, which is your wheels, right, with all the mechanisms, and it's going to show it static. And the next 2 panels are going to be composite panels, where it's motion overlay, and you're going to show the wheels in like 2 or 3 states. And so you might show it in 3 states on the second panel, and then in 6 states on the next panel, and that implies motion. So it's just overlaying that gear, because all it is as the wheel turns, the gear rotates the back with the drive wheels, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you understand the conundrum that, like, things are moving, but not in a way that it would show motion.
Right, and like Fowler says, all you have to do is you overlay with action lines individual states within the motion, and you imply with the action lines the motion, and then you just put a lot of steam. And then that's the cool part. Your first one is 3 panels or 3 overlays of 3 different rotations, and then your next one's maybe 5 or 6, and then your final one's just, you can barely see it because there's so much steam.
Okay.
Because you have to remember, on a steam locomotive, as you're building, you're going to be releasing pressure. The more pressure you build to get it, because you're going to build up an immense amount of pressure to get it moving. But once you're moving, I no longer need as much force.
Yeah.
So now I have to relieve pressure. Otherwise, my speed coefficient's going to be off based off of where my friction is.
That's a good idea. What I ended up doing is the steam thing, and then a panel of the 2 characters inside the car lurching forward. You know what I mean?
Yep. And you're going to see that if you go to YouTube and watch any steam locomotive do it. Hell, man, if you've ever ridden on a steam locomotive, you'll feel it. It's a lurching process. You kind of creep, and then it's a lurch, and then you slowly accelerate to speed because you hit that resistance point. So you could do that. There's your 4 panels right there for an intro page.
Cool.
So what I brought to the table was something that, man, it's pretty rare that I praise anything from this particular era. But in November of 1990 until April of 1991, DC Comics did something that was truly it's truly magical. They put John Higgins, who was a classic artist that worked on 2000 AD, and Jamie Delano, who at the time was writing Hellblazer, and Karen Berger and Tom Petrie threw them together on a book. It was a short book. They just said, "Hey, can you give us a short series?" And it's one of those moments it's unlike anything else in comics, because what these two did, it's like mixing kerosene and gasoline right next to an open match, man. These guys in any normal world would never work together. It just shouldn't happen. And so this 6-issue miniseries was called World Without End. And to the left of the image, you've got the 6 covers, and to the right of the image, you get the 6 covers. To the left of the image, you have the complete collection cover. And this is John Higgins as he shows up today. He's a fantastic artist. And this is Jamie Delano, the writer. These guys, man, they were at the absolute apex of their game when they did this. This book, the first issue, sold a little over 50,000 copies, and then each issue thereafter dwindled. Today, you can buy the trade for like 20 to 25, depending on where you pick it up. You can buy all 6 actual floppies for about 12 to 15 bucks shipped to you on eBay. It's a very unknown gem. It's not really appreciated nearly as much as it should be. And I'd like to spend a little bit of time on telling you why. Like I said, Delano's known for writing Hellblazer. He takes a break from Hellblazer. Higgins was renowned for 2000 AD, and also Higgins is one of the colorists on Watchmen. Yes, that Watchmen. So that's the talent that you're dealing with here. And all of this comes about pretty much because of Berger. Berger throws these two together and says, like, hey guys, Delano's got a good story. Higgins, I think you're a great one for it. And this is one of the few books from this era. I mean, you can talk about J.M. DeMatteis's Moonshadow, and you can talk about a couple other things like Doctor Strange into Shambhala. But this was a fully painted book. Higgins painted everything on this. And the art is absolutely stunning. But what is the story? Why is the story even important? Well, it's important in a great number of ways. And it's not just because of the story itself. It's both the visuals and the literary examples of what comics can be, what they should aspire to be. This is it's a very mature take, but in both tone, semblance, and art, it is something extraordinary. It's for its time. Yes, stuff like this has been done since, but man, you are really hard pressed to find something like this unless you go back into like the underground movement in the late 60s, early 70s, or you fast forward a decade and go into the early 2000s. You will not see something like this. The book is focused on 2 primary characters. It is focused on Brother Bones, and it is focused on Rumor. Now, one of the things I will say about this is it is not an easy book to read. And part of the reason for that is the way that Brother Bones speaks is they've replaced vowels with certain symbols and some of the consonants with certain symbols. His vernacular is, yes, you can read it, but it makes it a little hard. The story also is not exactly something that it's completely 100% linear. It doesn't flow at times very well. There's a couple of jumps, but if you take that 10,000 foot approach, it is something that is unlike almost anything else at the time. The concept is completely epic in both story and scope. It's set millions of years into the future, and the world has literally grown a new one. On the surface of the earth, there is it's covered with a new organism, a living flesh. And instead of seas, there's a commotion that churns, and whirlpools and storms of corrosion exist everywhere. On the edges of this giant organism, it's dead and rotting, and it's ripe with infection. And there's, scornful ridges of just dying bone. And the images of this are just absolutely stunning. They're just unlike anything you see in this period of comics. And again, they're all completely painted. And so at the core of this pulsating, lifeless or lifeful entity that covers the vast majority of the earth, and through its veins flows life's blood. You have hordes beyond hordes of living beings that exist on top of it, both in parasitical natures and like cells within our normal body, because this is a massive organism. And so all at the very center of this pulsing mass exists a city where all these entities live. And it's the city of Bedlam. And it's quoted within the story as that proud city whose taunt towers have bountiful reared and nurtured the parasitic multitudes through scuttling generations of zealous growth. And here in this land, the guests, a race of all male beings, hold court and tune the affairs of the masses. But they're all males, so they subjugate the feminine. The feminine is suppressed, it is destroyed until rumor is released. And then, in a fit of fear, the ruling tyranny creates and releases Brother Bones to go out and destroy rumor. And then the rest of the story is this beautiful, absolutely stunning, borderline like Greek melodrama play on the masculine and the feminine and the battle of the sexes, and who is going to rise and who is going to fall, and what's the strength and what's the weakness, and where does each one play into the other. And you can take any number of postmodernist views, but I think we agreed before the show and in the pre-show when we were talking, it's a post-structural context. It's not your traditional postmodernist riff. It's something a little bit beyond it. And the art is absolutely stunning. What Higgins was able to do is just beyond the pale. The mood, the tone, the panel layouts. He understands the rules so much, and it's the old cliche. You understand the rules so you can break them. He goes full circle, and he actually breaks them and then comes back around to them. It's really, really eerie. Higgins was actually in line to do Arkham Asylum instead of Dave McKean when this book fell into his lap, and he decided to work on this instead. And these are the 5 covers for it. That's issue 1. This is issue 2. This is issue 3, issue 4, issue 5, and then pulling out the last issue, issue 6. So, World Without End, it's not just a story. It's an actual experience. And I don't know how you would react to it approaching it in 2023. I can tell you when I first saw it in the mid 90s, my head exploded. I just wasn't ready for something like this. I had no idea that comics could do something like this. It's chaotic. It's insane. It's a fucked up erotic dreamscape / nightmare creature romp through the subconscious. With there's a little bit of melodrama, not gonna lie. The story's not the greatest, but man, does it fucking work with the visuals. And I think that's one of the lessons here is you can take a book like this that has a story that's maybe not fully hammered out or fully complete, but holy shit, does it absolutely just kill it when it merges with that art. It's one of those things where neither one of them work by themselves. I mean, the art's absolutely stunning and the story's great, but you put these 2 together and it just clicks and it fires on all cylinders. And holy shit, does it throws a grappling hook into your brain, And when they tug on that chain, man, the next issue, as soon as it comes out, you have to read it. It is unlike anything I've seen before. It's just two absolute masters of their craft jamming without any care in the world for what they are doing other than the process of creation and story. It's dynamic. It's got a mood all of its own. It still stands apart. And son of a bitch, if here we are not 30 years later still talking about it, because it is that engrossing. And I don't think I've seen anything that captures the tone or the structure of a book like this in 6 issues since. So World Without End is mine.
Okay, so I want you to pretend that you're on a stream, and what would your elevator pitch be for this? Like, if this was being made today, how do you think it would go over? Like in the crowdfunding scene?
No, something like this would never sell. The art
Mm.
would sell. The art would sell it a little bit, but this something like this. I look at something like Rokan. Rokan's in the same vein, and I think that book made sub 20K. I don't think stuff like this. And it's amazing that this even happened, because this is pre-Vertigo. This is Karen Berger putting her neck out on the line, and it's because of books like this and a couple of the other books that Berger really pushed for that Vertigo was even founded. Because, yeah, the sales numbers weren't there, but there were pretty good sales overall. I mean, it sold over 50,000 copies its first issue. Which, today is like, holy shit, 50,000 copies. In 1990, 50,000 copies was nothing. So, not only did this book wasn't canceled because Berger was helming it and they trusted her. And amazingly, still today, this book is relatively unknown. And I see they're asking in chat. I'm sorry, I'm way behind, but it's World Without End by Jamie Delano and John Higgins. Like I said, if you go on eBay, you should be able to get all 6 floppies for less than like $15 shipped is market. If you want to get the trade's like 23 to 25 because they did a bunch of cleanup work on it, and it's got a it's got a forward and an epilogue and blah 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 blah.
I pulled it up while you were talking. It's like 16.
Okay, $16.
Yeah, it was like when you were showing off the pages, I absolutely concede that art is absolutely stunning, but it also seems like a lot of the pages a lot of them play off of each other. So when you see it in this kind of slideshow way, it's very striking. A lot of these, though, I also feel like if you went into, an art teacher and saw one panel on the wall, you would just think that, like, well, it would be like that art teacher that just smokes a lot of grass.
Right. No, there's certainly that aspect to it. And I am the first to admit that as a prior user of psychotropic drugs, I certainly do enjoy this style of art a great deal. No, Matthew Fowler, not Sins of the Fae. We're talking about quality here. So, but something like this, man, it invokes an emotion. And I love stuff like this. That's why I immediately, when you asked, I referenced Roken. I'd love to see more stuff like this. I'd love to see more artists really kind of reach out and try and experiment. The problem is, like you said, in a crowdfunding scene, there's just the audience is too small for something like this. And that's the absolute tragedy of it when you talk about having to crowdfund a book, is unless you can afford to do something that's, unless you're independently wealthy, a book like this, sadly, probably would not really resonate today. Or if it did, it would barely scrape by and probably wouldn't get the attention to detail that it really deserves.
Well, it sounds like it came from a time where people were looking for that kind of madness, and today we have enough of that everywhere all of the time.
Well, and there's certainly an argument for that. Absolutely. When you talk about, what do you look for in a time of structure? You look for stories of chaos. Well, what do you look for in a time of chaos? You look for stories of structure. It's, Sandals to Sandals in 3. It's, Strauss Howe. It's all the classic The 4-generational theory is certainly being applied. And to gauge what literature, or what you would call literature, I qualify some graphic novels and comic books as literature, not all by any means, but some of that certainly is hitting a zeitgeistian feel within where we are at, and stuff that worked really well and resonated in 90 absolutely isn't going to resonate now. Number one, given the literary patterns of readers today, I can't imagine readers picking up this book and seeing dialogue by Brother Bones that is structured in this way and reading it and tolerating it for 6 issues. They would get irritated. They want to be spoon-fed. The classic example, if you look at like work instructions at most major megacorps, work instructions 25 years ago were written at an 8th to 6th grade level. Now they have to write them at a 3rd or a 4th grade level because of the lack of contextual understanding of words. We're getting dumber as a species. And so when you talk about, things like this and having, just doing alternate takes, it wouldn't resonate. It wouldn't work in a broader spectrum. And it's an absolute travesty. And this is why everybody needs to kill their television and read more.
Yeah. So when you say that that the men got together and destroyed the feminine, is the entire book that base?
Yeah, no, it is. The entire book is that they are the guests are trying to destroy Rumor, who is the feminine that has escaped.
Okay.
And
they win, right? Because it's like,
I'm not going to ruin it for you, man. You got to go out and read it yourself.
It's like the Australian women's soccer team losing to 15-year-olds, right? We have to win.
That was the U.S. soccer team, the U.S. women's
Oh,
soccer
it was
team.
both.
Oh, was it both? Okay, I didn't know that.
Australians women's team lost like way worse.
That's actually surprising. I would assume their women would be more masculine, given that they have to like wrestle crocodiles and shit to go to the grocery store. So yeah, so that's what I bought. Now, what do you think, man? Is this a book that you would read?
Oh, I ordered it while you were talking.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess the sales pitch worked then, man.
Yeah, it's going to the bottom of the stack, but it'll be in there. Yeah, I'm way behind. I still haven't read Jupiter. I got Shadowpunk to read.
Yep, yeah, I just got Shadowpunk this week. I still have not read Jupiter myself. I've flipped through it a couple times. Matthew Fowler, who's in the chat, I got Tiger Blue 2. That's at the top of the stack. I have yet to read that one. It's just hard, man. It's the amount of great books coming in. Plus I've got some great scripts coming in, and then I have some awesome conversations with creators on ideas and stuff that's in the works. So it just never seems to end. It's a constant influx. I honestly don't know how people have time to watch as many shows as they do when there's so much great material out there to read.
Mm-hmm.
So on that, Matthew Fowler got Shadowpunk. Talk now. Lion Mill Studios, what you talking about? I'm smarter than ever. Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Corey Barton says, sounds like a cool book to me. It is, man. And honestly, if you're not familiar with Delano's run on Hellblazer, check that out, man. Both these guys, if you see Higgins on art, just buy it. If you see Delano writing it, just buy it. Both these guys are absolute masters of their craft and produce really, really quality stuff. So highly regarded, highly referenced, and highly suggested. I own, I think, just about everything Delano's written, and I don't own almost everything Higgins has drawn, because 2000 AD issues are kind of a pain in the ass to get here in the States. But that being said, I think on that note, we will probably call it a night. I would say this worked out pretty well, man. This was successful. You had a real tearjerker, and I don't know what you'd call what I presented, but I'm glad to hear you picked it up.
Yeah, as far as filler episodes go, you could do a lot worse.
Yeah, ain't that the
we could have had we could have had a clip show.
Well, we could have spent 45 minutes talking about some 1990s comic strip that was in the back of Details magazine called Wild Palms for 45 minutes. That would have been awful. In fact, it was awful. I was there for it. You missed it. It was bad.
Oh, this was last week?
No, this was a couple of. This was like, I think it was episode 4 or 5. I had a guest cancel and had to throw something together at the last minute. Do not leave me unattended, because the topics that I pick are not interesting to more than like 5 people. Snuggie says, I couldn't get this, but shouldn't I back a mediocre crowdfund that won't fulfill for 4 years instead? Dude, for 25 plus 10 shipping, if you take that $35, do you have any idea how many great books you can buy? It just like surfing eBay. Like that's,
I mean,
like
you
Shane
could get 5.
Davis right now. He re-released Extend, and I get that he added stuff to it. That's like a $6 book at most shops. Like why would you pay 35, 25 plus 10? I don't get it. Even though he's adding material to it, it doesn't register in my head. It wasn't a great story to start out with. It was marginal. That 35, there's great stuff out there that you can go buy. For example, just go to Fantagraphics. You can get 330 pages for $35. And that's Gene Colan level art. That's Wally Wood art. Like, it's just there's no question when it comes to price point. Go out there and find something that's absolutely fucking fantastic, that gives you hundreds of pages or great quality. Fowler says for $35 you can pick up a hardcover Silvestre Batman. Dude, price point matters at the end of the day for the consumer. So I'm always the guy that's out there saying, check a lot of these crowdfunds, unless you really, really are like into that guy, man, just wait, because they'll be cheaper at the back end, and in the long run for the big guys, it'll come down. You'll be able to score it somewhere else, and you can get something really cool. You want to support an indie creator, that's a different story. Those guys definitely need your money, because those guys are doing what Delano and Higgins did here. They're the ones that are pushing the envelope. They're the ones that are, taking a risk and trying something. And that's what I love. I love to see guys I love to see artists. I love to see writers absolutely push that envelope to see what you can do. That's why I like JP so much, with what he did with Eudaimonia, with what he did with Noirlum, and what he's doing with How to Die. He's trying something. And to it, dude, man, I think, JP, you even admit that How to Die 1, you kind of missed, and you self-corrected. And, if the audience, as your video today said, the audience doesn't respond on How to Die 2, you're just going to, okay, I'm just going to self-correct from that and live and learn and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a miss, it's a miss. But, you should never be so invested in a story that you can't walk away from it. There should always be, nobody should only have one story to tell. So I got more, and I'm going to keep at it.
Sounds good, man. Well, I think on that note, we're going to call it for the night. Do you have any last words, JP?
Yeah, for $35, you can get 5 copies of Listen. So, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Hell yeah, man. And that's, Listen is in the Noirlum universe, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So
that's actually going to print as soon as it's in pre-press. So probably printing in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Well, if you look down in the details of this stream, you will find links for both my wonderful co-hosts, both of his books that he currently has, as well as the backup channel to this show, The Gutter. New old shows will be updating probably next week, and I'll be dropping at least one, if not 2 a week after I go through and do some editing. If in the meantime, please like, comment, subscribe here on the Comic Talk channel, and as always, thank you for venturing down into the gutter.
This is blood for blood and by the gallons. This is the old days, man, the bad days, the all or nothing days. They're back. There's no choices left.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.